They took off his shoes too, but once again took his coat to over himself for cold and walked toward the kitchen. I'm going to make a tea. You want it? They yelled from the kitchen, and he smiled on their little shout. Of course, he gave their answer while walking toward the kitchen. As he entered there, he saw they standing near the stove and placed his hand near the fire. They felt the presence behind they, and his gaze on him. They didn't turn nor said anything, but his gaze were making them nerve, and that knew their nervousness he was enjoying it, the hesitation and hiding, everything. Folding his arms on his chest, he leaned on the door of the kitchen, but eyes still on they. God, Jungkook, don't look at me like this, please, he mumbled. Slowly felt his cheeks were heated up, and hands shivered just to for his gaze. In nervousness, they could not think of anything, and start to remove his earrings. His bangles voice created a beautiful music in his silence. His coat slipped on the shoulder, and he tried to hold it back, but suddenly he felt his hand on Tae, making his every moment to stop. May I help? He asked to move closer to him, and they felt his breath was falling on his ear. With cover he made his arm to cover him in, taking the in amber of his arms from behind. I can help in feeding you cold, he whispered in their ear, waiting for they act anything. For they but he didn't say anything. Can I stay in your room tonight? He asked, making their turn to him, breaking his circle of arm. Why? They asked, who was trying to hide his smile. I feel alone, and that scared me. That why. With an innocent answer, he took a step toward they, but he, as move a step back, his arm reached their waist and pulled him closer to him. That every distance ended, and his hand rest over the shoulder. Eyes meet with him for once, and then look away for the hated one. Leave me. They said his tongue was not letting him speak properly, and he was enjoying that nervousness. Until you let me sleep in your room, he said, stubbornly. Jungkook, they look at him. Taehyung, is it true? What I can read in your eyes? He asked, his thumb carrying their cheeks, and his eyes lowered down. Heart was about to come out when they felt his lips on his forehead, but still he didn't say anything. He leaned closer to his lips, making him shut but his eyes tightly. This time, don't push me back. It's not good for you then. He whispered in their ear and kissed his ear softly. Jungkook, please. On his word, he moved back and looked at Tae, who had his eyes tightly closed. He kept looking at Tae for a second and then slowly took off his arm from his waist and moved back, making Tae's eyes open. They looked at him, who was already looking at him. For a second pause, and then he looked down and again looking at Tae. Don't take it seriously. I was just joking. You don't have to be worried. I was joking. But I didn't take it as a joke. I'm serious about it. You can sleep in my room if you want to. Here is your tea. They placed the cup of tea in the shelf and moved ahead, going out from the kitchen, but stopped on the entrance but didn't turn to him. And I didn't push you this time, but you stopped by yourself, they said, and walked to his room, give a shock of happiness. Taehyung, he yelled his name and ran toward his room. Taehyung, shouting his name, he pushed the door of his room and looked at him, who was applying something on his hand. Jungkook, what happened? They asked, but he ran to him and picked Tae in his arm, circling in the room happily. Jungkook, please stop. What happened? Laughing, they asked him, holding his shoulder tightly, but he was circling in the room, carrying him in his hand. You give me permission to sleep in your room. This is the biggest happiness for me, he said innocently, looking at him once and again circling in the room. What? Jungkook, leave me, he said, and he stopped, making him land on his feet but still holding Tae closer to his heart. I'm sleepy. Leave me now, they said, hiding a smile, and tried to move out of the embers, but please stay closer to him again. You can't sleep, Rain. I am here, he whispered, looking at Tay, whose cheeks turned pink. On his word. Don't look at me. Turn to the other side, he said, and his hand was shivering as his heart beat differently. What should I do then? He asked as he ran his finger on his arms, reached to his hand. What should I do there? He asked in a whisper near his ear, making his breath too uneven. He made Tay turn to him and look at Tay, who had his eyes lowered. He cupped his face with the right hand and with the other, he pulled Tay closer by his waist. His hand touched his shoulder, and eyes were still lowered. Leaning on his lips, he didn't let Tay speak anymore, and captured his lips in a kiss which made their heart to stop. It was not a passionate but filled with emotion. Love made the tears to come out. He slowly moved back and looked at Tay, who was standing in front of him with a smile on his lips and tears in his eyes. He wiped the tears and pulled him into a hug which they had longed for, a hug which was give him peace to have a beautiful life with him. Holding each other in the embrace, they were happy, excited, and ready to start their new family with each other. 10 years later, it was a huge hall and filled with silence, a silent dining table with a different kind of dishes placed on it. On the first day, Jungkook and Taehyung were seated for having dinner, and the next of them were their kids, 6-year-old Jungkook and 5-year-old Sahar, who also have their meal silently like their parents. Miss Kim Taehyung's mom and Insu's parents and Jungkook's siblings were seated there too silently. Jungkook, it was Mr. John's brother. Call him and he looked at him. It's about a month ago they were living happily with each other. Jungkook and Taehyung's life filled with each other's love and their happiness, this small but beautiful home filled with happiness. Up to the two flowers come in their life, Sahar and Jungkook was there too, happy for their lives. They were so much happy to be with him. They had completed their family. They had completed them, and there was nothing else they could ask for. They didn't want anything else. They were happy in their life, enjoying every moment with each other. And again their past come in front of them. It was a fine morning when Jungkook was playing with their kids in the lawn, because it was a sunny day, and after many days, they were enjoying this sunny day and each other. Then the door rang, and they went to open it. He was shocked to see Miss Kim, and his brother was standing alone with his uncle. Jungkook, his mother cried looking at him, and he allowed them to enter the home. Who's there, Jungkook? Taehyung asked, and coming out and stopped on his place seeing his mother and brother there. It was the result of their arrival that they were once again seated in the mansion which they never wanted to come. His mother requested him to come home for once. They had realized what mistake they had done. They got to know about the truth behind the blame, and that's why they were called came back to the home after years. Jungkook, Insu want to meet you. She is in a very bad condition. She want to ask forgiveness for you both of them, what she did. I requested you to please meet him once. He is not in a good condition. We're sorry to hear that, what happened, but please, meet him once. Said his uncle, with tears shining in his eyes. I don't want to. I can't come because I couldn't say no to my mother. But that day when we left the home, we broke every relation with all of you. Because all had broken us. And your daughter was behind it all. It was not merely a blame, which you all had put on us, but it was a dirt, which had made us to hate ourselves too. We were survived. We only knew but to survive. Said Jungkook looking down. At all eyes were shedding tears on it. 5 years old, Insu made the accident which caused him to get paralyzed, and now he was not able to move at all. His husband, and his daughter, she came back to home. He was destroyed completely. His husband took his son away also, his only child. In this year, he had let him meet his son. He cried and cried, but there is nothing he can do. And then he realized what it was happening because he did something which destroyed two lives. The put of blame on Jungkook and Taehyung, the sin which he did on putting false blame on anyone. He made a son and daughter far away from the mother, and he was cried for his child. He is so in regret. He told everyone the truth, and now he made Jungkook and Taehyung to come at their place just to put the blame on them. That made shocked everyone. Mr. John fell back and defeated. He took it, his heart, which caused a heart attack to him. He was dying since that regret and shame. He was asking for his almighty dad. He got to know. But Jungkook was not agreed to meet him. He didn't mean to see Inso, either his father, who didn't believe him. Taehyung held his hand and looked at him. He gave a light smile to him, and then his mother. He'll meet his father. We'll go to meet him, they said and looked his hand, and then he did, and seemed to agree with his father. Both went to the room and looked at Dad, who was looking so weak. He was lying on the bed. His eyes were hardly open, and he saw both of them. His eyes shined up and tears started to flow down. Jungkook. He called them and both moved his head and hugged him, giving a peace to his heart. Jungkook cried too. He met his father, and Taehyung was crying too. He also hugged his mother and took the blessing, and then they went to see Insu, who was lying on the bed unable to move, and shrieked as he saw them but didn't let them say anything, but forgave him what he had done. His parents and uncle insisted to stay their family like before, but Jungkook's answer was very clear, and no one insisted. We cannot be like this before. We can never be now. We are happy in our life. Please let us live like we are living, he said and held Taehyung's hand and walked out of their house with their kids to live a peaceful life, which was filled with love and trust. They sat in their car and Jungkook held Taehyung's hand again, placing a soft kiss on the back, and both smiled looking at each other. Jungkook moved a little and ahead to ask, Daddy, now where? Jungkook said on his question. Sweet home, Jungkook said, and Taehyung both replied together and chuckled. Their kids too, and started the car to move their home, which they had their own world of love and happiness.